Hey everybody, this is Andrew and JC, and we are here for a awesome 41st episode of the show.
Wow.
And this one kind of came together last minute. Everybody knows that I had some struggles recently this week and found myself staying in a hospital with my son for over 4 days. And so I had a conversation with our guest for his show with JC, and so we were able to have him come on with us tonight, and we're going to chat about, whatever it is we chat about. And I
Cool.
will introduce him, as always, after the intro.
The truth is out there. Never stop looking. Never be sheep. Always disrupt. We are the ungovernable. We are the truth seekers. We are Sasquatchers.
Wow.
That's a
Here
way
we are.
better intro than the one I used to have, but I think you would like the old one.
Still blows my eardrums out.
So we are here with Brandon from the Tinfoil Tales podcast, and like I said, we just talked to him for an extended period of time on his show, and we enjoyed it so much we're gonna try to do it again here on ours. So without further ado, we will introduce Brandon and let him kind of introduce himself to you all.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Glad to finally get a chance to talk to Andrew and JC. We've kind of chatted back and forth for several months, but it's just been so chaotic with life and everything going on that it took a while to get things going, but definitely glad to be here. You may have heard I host Tinfoil Tales podcast. It's kind of similar to what they do here at Sasquatchers. Basically, I interview people that have experiences. It ranges from anything from paranormal to cryptids to UFOs to conspiracies. Anything that is outside of the normal mainstream is something that I'm interested in, and I've had some experiences, and I love what I do. It's about the gist of it, I guess.
Yeah, and the podcast it was really fun, and I think that you were extremely accommodating to us, and I thank you for being able to kind of work around the craziness that hit me this week. And I hope everybody, if you're not already familiar with it, and I think you should be, that you seek out the podcast and take a look, because I think it's real solid work. And of course, everybody who listens knows that we are tight with Rye and Tom from the Lost Frequency, and you had collaborated with them too, and I enjoyed those collaborations, or the sharecast or whatever that you guys ended
Mm-hmm.
up doing. And honestly, like a lot of stuff, those Lost Frequency podcast kind of put me onto a lot. So I can honestly say that through those guys, that's kind of how I discovered you. And it was completely unrelated to how you and I started talking on Reddit. I believe was kind of the origin of our conversation, and
Yeah.
kind of booking this night that we did finally. And
Good old Reddit.
yeah, so living proof right here that sometimes Reddit can work out in your favor, because I am terrible with I get banned from Reddit constantly. People boot me out of the paranormal stuff, and then I thought I'd have better luck if I got out of the paranormal and I started doing some other subreddits. And I was in a garage band subreddit that immediately everybody just turned on me. And so I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm gonna just kick a can and go home and stop paying attention to this.
I got attacked because, and I got downvoted. I asked a question about how to better promote the podcast in a podcasting thing. And someone said, we get asked this question all the time, but I listed that my podcast is already successful in the sense of I've been doing it for a little over a year. And like just the amount of downloads and other, like, I was like, I'm happy with where I'm at, but I would like to continue to help it grow. And someone got all crappy with me, basically saying that this is posted all the time. Why don't you go back and look at notes? And I said, I already mentioned I'm not looking to do the typical, I'm looking for outside the box things. And because I said that, I kept getting downvoted. I was like, this is so stupid.
Yeah, it's a weird soapbox that people have on there that, before the podcast, I'd never touched Reddit. I never went to Reddit. I've never been on it.
It's a cesspool.
Yeah. And I try my best because, like everybody, I'm doing a show here that I'd like to get some listeners and some people to pay attention to. So yeah, even networking, there's lots of reasons to reach out to people on there, but I just have the terrible luck. And I guess it's not just me. I feel better now hearing that it's a cesspool for everybody else. But
I think I messaged you because someone was actually trolling you.
Yeah.
I was like, that guy's a troll. He's not being serious.
Yeah, I can't remember what I posted about, but there was
something with experiences or something like that, I think. And this dude was telling you to talk to this researcher, Dr. Drew something or another. I was like, that's not even a real person. Like, he's tried that shit on me, and it's literally just, he has like 15 different accounts, and he just makes up stuff, and he argues with himself, and it's like, it's craziness.
It's classic Redditor right there.
What's funny is, like, you didn't get to me in time. So the guy that he told me to reach out to, I sent this huge thing to, and he just never even responded. So when you told me, I was like, all right, I'm going to block this guy. But yeah,
he did the same. He did the same thing to me. He was commenting on something that I posted, and like his other alternate names were commenting back, and I kept getting downvoted. And I was like, why am I being downvoted? And all these people are like upvoting each other's comments. But when I would respond back to this guy, I kept getting downvoted. I don't understand the whole trolling of Reddit. That can be an entire episode in itself of the conspiracy of Reddit.
I'm surprised you didn't get banned for even mentioning that you had a podcast, because even in the podcast friendly groups or the paranormal groups, I have been banned for even mentioning that I had a show. There's like so many hoops that you have to go to talking to people on there because they're so against advertising, I guess, which to an extent I can understand. But when you get into some of those subreddits that tend to be very niche and specific to what we do, it seems to be even harder to promote your show or talk to people and get, make connections or get yourself out there in any way.
Yeah, it's I did get banned from humanoid encounters. I got banned for 3 days, and I argued with the mod. They said I was self-promoting. I was like, I didn't even name my podcast. I said, someone had talked about seeing this thing. I was like, hey, if you ever want to talk about it, I'd be interested in having you maybe come on an episode sometime. That's all I said. They're like, you're self-promoting. I was like, how the hell is that self-promoting? Like, well, your name is your podcast, so that's self-promoting. I was like, you're a freaking idiot. People that are mods on Reddit think they're like the holy grail of internet or something. I don't know, like, they sit on their pedestals and look down up everyone. Oh, I'm a moderator of a subreddit.
Yeah, those are like the same dudes that grew up being mods on pro boards back in the day. And there's like a weird elitism that comes with that, I think.
I don't get into it. It's all stupidity. Like I said, I don't deal with the drama on any certain aspect. So if people on Reddit get mad at me, if people on the internet get mad at me, oh well. I still got to get up and go to work the next day. I don't care that someone's offended.
Yeah, we had a really fun couple of weeks when we had a Facebook group that was trying to destroy us.
Man, I got very petty with it.
And I think you needed to.
Yeah. So the thing that got me banned, so there was a Sasquatch group where it's very clear that like the admins of the group and most of the people in the group do not believe in Bigfoot at all, but they have it open, and the group is called like, what was it? It was like Real Sasquatch Believers or something like that. Like it's a honeypot for Sasquatch people to go in.
I've noticed that most of these are literally like breeding grounds for trolls.
Yeah, like they want you to go in thinking that it's a place where you can talk about this stuff so that they could then spend their time ridiculing you like they have like
and so Drew posted something in there, and everybody just started gang piling on him and just shitting on him. And the two of the main culprits were like the admins, and I've started I was interested in what this group was about, so I started going back. I had an hour or two, nothing was going on, so I'm just sitting there scrolling back through all these posts all the way back. I made it all the way back to 2019, and what they were accusing Drew of, they had done themselves. And I took all these screenshots of these posts from the people that were accusing Drew of things. I posted them, and then I got into it with the admin in the group. So as my final shot at him, I took his Facebook profile picture and put it in paint and added little tears and told him to stop crying about it and posted that. And he commented something, but then blocked me so fast I couldn't even see what he had commented. But I still have that picture of him to this day, and I'm not afraid of showing it.
And then they spent weeks getting us shadow banned, and
it was wild.
Every day I would get on to try to promote the show or do something on one of our pages through Facebook. I would see that we were reported for doing something against community standards, and it wouldn't just be that message. It would be like, this has been reported by several people or multiple people think you suck. And the only time that occurred was when these people were beefing with us. And after a couple of weeks, that's why I started. I have a second page on Facebook that's dedicated to our show called Sasquatchers Andrew, because I was like, well, number one, I don't want these people ever having any type of troll feel by seeing my real life family or whatever. And number two, they're really hurting my ability to promote the show that we just started. So I because of that, I had to create a second page. But
I've been debating on making a second Facebook, but I hate it in general. So I don't want to have a second one, but I don't like having my personal stuff intermingled with the podcast, because I think we mentioned it on my show a little bit. You don't know who you're really talking to. You don't know who's out there looking at your stuff. I have photos of my family.
Right.
You don't know what you're getting involved with. You don't know what these people's intentions really are. Don't feed the trolls. Especially when you start going into certain avenues with these different groups and stuff like that, like alien abduction groups, cryptid groups, conspiracy groups. You don't know what type of people are involved in these groups, and they might believe in certain things. And I know the stigma is that, all these people are crazy. I don't think they're all crazy. Doesn't mean there's not some in there too. And I was warned about a guy that's literally 20 something miles away from where I live. They're like, if you ever get a message from this guy, don't respond to it. The dude's a known child predator. I was like,
wow.
I was like, he can try something. I was like, I guarantee he's not gonna like the outcome of it, because I don't play them games.
Right. Yeah, 100%. That's that. When I first started the show, I never imagined I'm gonna have a following. I'm gonna have people that are, joining our groups. I started the podcast, and we got 15 members in my Facebook group, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I didn't ever expect that it would grow to over 600 people that actually don't interact as much as when we did when there were 15 people in it, but there's still
basically ghosts hanging out in there.
600 people joined the group that then would have had access to all of my photographs and stuff.
My group's got 60 people, and I think I'm the only one that's ever posted in there.
Yeah, that's disheartening. It bums me out, because when we didn't have a lot of people, it was kind of busted, and we had
quite a lot of interaction for a while in there.
And that's the type of stuff that, at least early on, kind of made me feel good, and what we were doing was reaching people. I mean, now obviously we have our analytics, and we know that people listen and watch, and we have a really cool cult following, and there's some really good people that support us in ways. But yeah, there's so many strangers.
we could talk about the Discord stint
We-
or the lack of.
I have a Discord too, but I don't even advertise the link anywhere, so no one can join it.
No, we advertised it. We advertised the
Man,
shit
I
out of that.
advertised the shit out of it. Guess what? We'd like myself, Drew, and two other people for like weeks. Then Drew one day posted in there. He's like, "We got to kill this." Then he texts me. He's like, "Kill this stupid thing." So the Discord rest in peace to that idea.
It's like my Patreon. I literally got a second person today, second subscriber. I was like,
Oh,
hell
nice.
yes. I feel
Honestly,
great. I have
awesome.
2 people.
That's 2 more than we have.
Yeah, I got to the point where I started a Patreon, but I was defeated by it because everything that I tried to upload didn't it was too large, and I was like, I don't know how much more I can, compress this thing without sacrificing all
Press
of the
down
audio.
like 14 kilobyte videos. It looks like you're watching.
I don't know what the limit is, but
it's 500 megs, isn't it? Is that what we discovered?
I can't even remember, but
even like with my hosting service, I have to upload like smaller MP3s, and I just have them set at 90 or 192, I think, KBS or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they seem to be all right, but sometimes I go full idiot and trying to upload the wave. I'm like, wait a minute.
I don't
Like,
understand.
the file is too large. I was like, how the hell is that too large? Like, oh, it's the wave file. Duh.
But also, this is a subscription platform where people are paying for your content. You should be able to provide something that is
a little bit better quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
So
well, you know what a lot of people do is they don't actually host the content on Patreon. They just host the links to a private YouTube channel or something like that. So you get access by subscribing, but you don't actually watch the videos on Patreon. You get redirected to like their content.
The only thing I got on mine right now is all the episodes early. So when I get done like recording an episode and putting it together, I post it on Patreon. Right now I've got 12? No. With you guys, I recorded last night and then the other day. I have 15 episodes waiting to be released.
Wow.
I only was releasing 1 episode a week, so I have a huge backlog of episodes. So I started feeling bad again, so I've been releasing 2 episodes a week for the month of March, just to try and get caught up.
It's March Madness, right?
Yeah. So once I get caught up, but then in April, I've got some interviews scheduled, and then I'm not going to do any more interviews for a little bit just because I don't know how baseball season is going to play out because all of my kids are either in softball or baseball.
Nice.
And that takes up most of my May and June and into July. So without having to schedule anything, I don't want to try and schedule something not knowing how their games are going to be scheduled. So that's why I try to keep a bigger backlog. But when it comes to like the interviews and everything else, like it almost gets overwhelming because then I feel bad. Like people will record with me and I'm like, yep, it'll come out in like 5 months.
Yeah, I guess if they have something that they're trying to promote real quick, but I think that they would probably let you know that going into it.
Yeah, anyone that wants me to put the episode out at a specific time, I do, but so I shuffle things around, but I have one coming out pretty soon, and I have a feeling it's going to be too controversial and probably turn off a lot of my listener base, but...
Whoa, hold on. We can't just gloss over this. You gotta come on, give us a little bit of tendies here.
They wrote a book, and it's all backed by their data, and it is called Christ Before Jesus. And it basically, in their book, they've determined that Jesus was made up after the fact. He's not a real person or character based off of what their research has discovered. And I'm not a religious person, so it doesn't affect me. But I know a lot of the listener base has like Christianity beliefs or anything like that. And it basically, they're saying that the New Testament is not accurate. And that might rub people the wrong way. It's like I said, I don't agree with any of the religions because I'm just not very religious in general. So it's like, it's not controversial to me, but I've noticed a lot of comments I get on certain posts, especially for like Dogman and paranormal stuff or whatever. It was like, oh, God made this. Say Jesus' name. This and that. I was like, okay, well, those people are probably going to unsubscribe now once they hear this episode.
There's a huge amount of people that I didn't expect that were interested in the type of fringe topics that we talk about that are actually super religious.
See, I see two sides to it. There are people that are like super religious, like Christians, and then there are like the witchcraft pagan side that does nothing but blame Christianity for everything, and they just all tangle back and forth, and that's like the two sides of the paranormal community.
If that doesn't get me canceled, the episode that's about to come out here soon probably will too. It's the Rothschild episode.
Where, you're done. Just for even mentioning it, you're done.
Yeah. We go into a little deep dive with another podcast. They come on the show and they did their research on the Rothschilds, and it led into other topics that I was like, well, probably going to get canceled over this one, but whatever. Had a good run.
If it makes you feel better, I'll listen to it in full because I actually don't know what you're talking about. And JC kind of seems to know, so I must be the one that's the outlier here. I don't know what.
I'm guessing it goes into some territory. I'm not gonna get super hardcore in here, but I think we both know which direction it probably goes, right?
Yeah, about a specific type of family and people, and where they stem from, and where all the money from that controls the world comes from. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that'll be a fun one for me. I'll be looking for it.
Yeah, you're instantly.
It probably won't. He won't be able to hear it because it's not even going to get posted. As soon as it tries to air, I'm going to get another Facebook or not a Facebook, but another YouTube banning. I already had one episode banned.
No, really?
Yeah.
What was it about?
It wasn't banned because of what the topic was about. It was banned because the guy was talking about what happened during the Beast era, is what we refer to it as, during 2020, 2021. And people were supposed to take their vitamins and their fruits and vegetables and the jabby jabs and everything else. And his mom had done all that, but she still passed away. So he said that she'd done that. She still caught the beast and passed away. And I got flagged for spreading false medical information.
Oh man, yeah, that was happening a lot.
The whole topic, though, of the episode is the guy has an iPhone, and if he uses the iImage or whatever it's called, iPhoto, where it still has some movement to it, when he takes pictures of people, he can actually see that they're aliens in disguise because their faces morph. And he can see, by changing the filters on the photos, he can find UFOs in the sky, and there's a planet circling around the sun, and there's one coming close to Earth, and all the clouds are actually spaceships. Like, it is some out there stuff. That didn't cause a flag. It was literally because he said his mom passed away.
Wow.
I was like, so that's the most controversial part of this episode, is the fact that she passed away, and you're going to ban my video because he'd said something about that. Okay.
Did you ever get it put back up, or did you just kind of keep it on the audio?
I fought it, and they said it does not meet their standards.
That's wild. You should put it on Rumble.
The audio is still available. Like, the audio is still out there. I think it's like episode 20 or 21, 22, something like that. But it's on, like, for anyone to listen to. It's just not available on YouTube. Which, it's just audio.
Yeah, I love Rumble because, like Drew said, it's literally it's what the internet was in like 2000, just the unregulated Wild West. There's anything you want to go on there and talk about things that are going to get you banned anywhere else. You can go on there, you can say any words you want, you can slur, you can no one's stopping you. Go on Rumble.
I've thought about it, but again, I don't do a whole lot of videos anyways. The YouTube is literally just generated from my podcast hosting service, so I don't use the video for anything in general. And it's like, whatever. But no, basically, I've had some controversial topics, and of all the things that we've talked about, I was like, why is that the one that gets me in trouble?
Yeah,
but
controversial topics are great though, right? Because that's what fosters, like, that's how open communication and like freedom and stuff supposed to work, is by having these like hard discussions, and blocking that doesn't do anybody any good.
When you're a conspiracy type person like myself, and then you ban my content. You're just kind of
see,
you're reinforcing me to believe
they're martyring you.
You're reinforcing the belief that you're trying to control the narrative.
One of the most interesting things that I've been seeing lately, it's been banned on YouTube, are the child predator takedown videos, where like these dudes, they're getting taken down and their content's being banned from YouTube because they're just dumb stuff. Like, there wasn't law enforcement in the video, they didn't give disclaimers, they didn't do this stuff, and then like even after they went through all these hoops and they filmed the law enforcement and they proved all this stuff, like they still get banned. So they all, I've been going to Rumble, I've noticed, because that's like my guilty pleasure. Like when I'm laying in bed at night, I'll watch like child predator takedown videos and stuff. And I think Drew recently has been doing that as well.
I do it all the time. That's one of my favorite non-paranormal things to do, is watch those. And there's a local one out here that I tried to join and they just never responded. I don't know if
by trying to join, Drew means he was the one inside the Walmart when they showed up.
You got the video will be out soon.
I have another podcast. We haven't been doing anything the last few weeks, but it's called Dark Side of the Scene. It's a music related one. And we were interviewing someone about a month ago, and they started talking about one of these guys that they were trying to start a band with, and they don't do anything with him, but they kept referring to like making comments or something. I was like, I don't care. We're on a live stream. There's no one watching, so it doesn't really matter to me. I was like, who are you talking about? And then they end up kind of referring to who he is. I found him on Facebook and I shared the whole, like, who he was on the screen. So anyone interested in knowing, he was making very inappropriate comments about like a 4-year-old. I think they was like, and then just very, very creepy stuff. And I was like, I don't care. People like that, I'm going to put on blast, and they need to have their information put out there because they're creeps and they don't deserve to go around being a creep. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think everybody, if people disagree with that.
I'm interested about this, the dark side of the scene, and what that exactly that is. So I think you'd mentioned that you'd been in like metal bands and that in the past. So is this a podcast that just delves in, like, so there's the dark side of the ring, right?
Yeah.
So is this
I ripped off the
metal band version of?
It's not so much metal bands. We interviewed a lot of different bands. Most of them were metal because for some reason that's just who always kept reaching out to us. But we've had some other groups that reached out to us as well, and it started off pretty good. Like, we had a lot of people wanting to come on the show. It was doing decent numbers for being a brand new podcast. And then, again, controversy. We ended up interviewing someone that, for some reason or not, the interview didn't so much affect, or didn't go into effect about the music. It did and it didn't. But his version of the dark side was he gets canceled no matter everything he does, because he supposedly is being accused of assaulting his ex-fiance, but he was never charged with anything. He proved all that. She was the one that was arrested and all this other stuff, but no matter what he does, he gets harassed for everything he does because she labeled him as an abuser. But yet she went to jail. She was the one that was arrested. He had all the cuts on him. Doesn't matter. He's the abuser. He's always attacked. So it said it hurts his music career. As soon as that episode aired, we started getting harassed by people. And ever since it aired, like, our audience completely just like disappeared. Hindsight 2020, should I release that episode because it didn't have anything to do with it did and it didn't? I don't know. I ended up deleting the episode because the girl kept harassing us, saying, and he's spreading lies and this and that. I was like, I literally paid money to do a background check on this guy and prove that he really didn't get it. He's never been charged with anything. So it's like, I don't know. But then we went on a little bit of a hiatus, and we came back doing live streams, and now we're just kind of back on a little bit of a hiatus. I assume we might do some more interviews, but it got to the point to where all of our interviews are starting to run the same. Like, there's no audience at this point. Like, we were getting like 4 or 5 downloads a week. I was like, 2 of those are probably us. So it's like, and the person we're interviewing. So it's like no one's listening. So what's the point? Like,
That's unfortunate that you ran into that. I don't. It bums me out that that kind
cancel
of
culture got us.
court of public opinion could hit somebody even like that.
This happened out in California. We're from Indiana, and we were being harassed by someone who'd been in prison. He left negative comments on our stuff, a bad review. He went to my co-host band and started labeling us racist and wife beaters.
Oh, okay.
He said we were white supremacists. My co-host is 100% Mexican, but he's a white supremacist apparently. I was like, it's friggin' stupid.
The La Raza that he's vivaing is white people.
It's completely stupid. Like, I was like, how are you going to call us racist and like white supremacists and women abusers and everything else when you have no idea even who we are and didn't even bother to check to see if we were even white or not?
That's kind of, I don't know, maybe in some way kind of gratifying. I mean, obviously it sucks that your podcast was affected by it, but at the same time, to have that level of hate come at you, like, it has to also feel good in a sense. Like, somebody is, how they say, you have that rent free in their head mindset, and somebody is that bothered by you that they had to try to destroy you. I don't know if maybe I'm just a narcissist, but I think that that's also kind of cool and gratifying. Like, it might justify kind of why you do what you do in a sense.
I don't know. More or less just pissed me off because what's the point of attacking us? We didn't have anything to do with it. We're not the ones that did anything. They're like, well, you're giving him a platform. You're letting him spread his. He's like,
those
whatever.
buzzwords. I hate those buzzwords. Platform and deplatform. And
I say platform because it is, for my show, it is kind of what it is. I don't really do a whole lot of talking on Tinfoil Tales, so I let people do all the talking. And with Dark Side, again, it's kind of the same concept that I let people come on there and talk about the bad things that happen to them playing music. Now, we've had people say they gotten their gear stolen up in Chicago. We've had people come on there and say they've had like bad band members. Obviously, like, y'all deal with all sorts of crap. So there's nothing. That's what people think. That I think when I was doing my show, they wanted to check that out. They're probably thinking, oh, it's about weird stuff that these band members have encountered. No, it's weird stuff in the sense of, hey, we drove 400 miles to play a show and there's nobody here and we're not getting paid. Like, that's the type of stuff that we talked about. Or the new thing is, you go and play a show and you have shirts or stickers or whatever you're selling, the venues are taking a cut of how much you sell. Merch cuts. That's a big controversy right now.
Yeah.
I don't think that they should have a cut of anything you're doing. If you have your own merch person, if you have you paid your own money for stuff, why should a venue have any sort of cut of what you have? They didn't put any money into it.
I don't know if it was on Eddie Trunk or some other show that I was listening to where they got really deep into that, and I had no idea that was going on. But that's huge right now.
Yeah, that's one of the big main issues that bands are fighting with, is the fact that these venues are taking money basically out of their own pockets for stuff they have zero to do with. They're already losing money from your record label. You're already losing money from your tours. You're already losing money elsewhere. Now the money you spend on getting your merch made, venues are taking a cut from it.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
There was a big, and I know it's here in the States too, but there was a big thing. I mean, this was like a year ago about bands playing in Europe, like American bands or whatever, because there's already a 20% VAT tax added on top of things that are sold. And then the venue was trying to take 20%. So like half of anything they'd make off merch was already gone.
Yeah. It's pathetic. So I haven't ever ran into that personally, but I haven't done band stuff in 4 years. So the last time I'd done something was literally 2 nights before lockdown.
So you caused it.
Probably. We played a show in Indianapolis on a Wednesday, I think it was, a Tuesday or Wednesday, and the next, like 2 days later, I think the world was shut down. So it should be coming up here on our 4-year anniversary when that happens.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah. Next,
I'll have to look that up.
But no, basically, that's kind of what started the whole podcast, like me doing a podcast, because my buddy and I were talking about, it was during lockdown and everything, and we started talking about conspiracies and weird things that are going on. And I don't know, I don't lean left or right, so I don't want to rub anyone the wrong way, but I'm not a political person. I'm very much anti establishment, I guess. Like I don't bleed red or blue or whatever you want to call it. Like I'm not into politics. And I know around here that's a terrible thing to say because I am in very much a red state. And I don't really fall in line with Agent Orange or whatever you want to call him, or the other guy. It is what it is. But so we were talking about stuff like that during that whole era, and I started listening to a podcast called Government Secrets. The two guys that host that, they call themselves the most censored, demonetized comedians in America, because the stuff they talk about has got them pretty much wiped off about some of the crap the CIA supposedly done and this and that, and like all sorts of like basically like a conspiracy type podcast. And that's where I come up with the idea of Tinfoil Tales, was because I liked what they were doing. And it was literally like the first, I listened to Joe Rogan. Everyone knew Joe Rogan, but I've never listened to another podcast before. And for some reason I typed in conspiracies, government conspiracies, stuff like that, just because I was bored at work and wanted something to listen to. And I found that. So I started listening to it, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool to start a show, because I had my own whacked out ideas about certain things. My buddy and I, we were always talking about it. So let's start a podcast. So I was trying to think of a name. Tinfoil Tales. Tinfoil hat. For some reason, I just was thinking, like, if you were a conspiracy person, if you talk about weird things, people are going to call you a conspiracy theory person. You wear a tinfoil hat, you're a crazy person. I'm going to talk about these conspiracies, call them tales, tinfoil. It just made sense. I thought it was a great idea. Didn't do anything with it. It wasn't up until spring of 2022, I started talking to this band, and we were talking about starting something up. It was a completely different band. I went and dropped like for $3,000 on a brand new PA system, which is sitting right over here with the tag still on it. I mentioned that earlier on my other show, I think, but I went and spent all this money on a PA system, and then it never even did anything. We had like one practice, and then they were like, oh, we're just going to do remote stuff. You can record if you want to. So I was like, all right. Well, I went and bought this interface. I went and bought this laptop and all this stuff to record, and then that never panned out either. But now I have all the stuff to record. I was like, you know what? Screw it. My idea from 2 years ago, I'm going to do this podcast. So I got my buddy out. The first podcast we talked about was weather control. Like, that was the topic for the first episode. And then we never did another episode. So I started to interview people about the weird things that they've encountered. The first person I interviewed was a dogman encounter, which, if you would like, Dogman is my bread and butter. And if you want me to tell that story, I can, of why it's my bread and butter.
Yeah, we can do that for sure. I honestly am blown away that it's been almost 40 minutes by now. So getting to the genesis of this, I think, is definitely a fun topic.
Essentially, I always grew up, if anyone can see behind my head, I can't do it backwards. The I want to believe from the old X-Files thing. That's always been like what I've wanted to do. Like, I've always been interested in monsters. I'm a huge Godzilla fan. I always liked aliens. I always liked the idea of Bigfoot. I'm a big horror movie nerd. So it's like, cool. Like that stuff. But I did not believe it ever really existed. And back in 2007, it just so happened to be 17 years ago, probably a month ago today, 17 years ago in like 1 month from the time we were recording this, I saw something and it pretty much changed my entire perspective of reality, because what I saw should not have been a possibility, at least not in my own known rational mind or whatever. I used to work at a paper warehouse company, and I worked on thirds. It was me and a couple other guys and a lady boss. This was our Friday, so it was like Friday night, early Friday morning, so it was probably like 3:30 in the morning. She comes up and tells us that if we get everything done, she'll let us leave early. And we're going to get paid for the rest of the day, because we don't usually get off till like 6:30. So if you're finding out you're going to get paid for not even being there, of course you're going to hurry up and get everything done so you can get the hell out of there. So we hurried up, busted ass, and then got out of there. Now, the road this happened on is honestly just the next road up and a couple miles over. I still live in the same general area where this happened. We're going down the road, and my coworker's in the front, and he's driving ahead of me. Now, he's probably a good 1,000 feet in front of me. Like, I can see his taillights or whatever. And I see him swerve off the road. He swerves back on the road. I'm like, what is this dude doing? He literally just drove off the road. Now, this is before we had smartphones. We weren't just scrolling on Facebook or whatever that people do these days.
Yeah.
Like, so the first thing I'm thinking is, did a deer run out? Like, who knows? I just seen his taillights go off the road. And then I noticed that there's something in the road as I'm getting closer. And as the closer I got to it, it literally looked like, to me, a person in a big black blanket, like wrapped up, or like someone would be wearing a big cloak, like wrapped around themselves. Because I didn't see any arms and I didn't see a head, but I could see very big legs and like its body, but it was all black. And it was leaning forward, and it would take a step, and its body was like almost like twitching, glitching. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it didn't look natural. Like, it'd take a step and it would like weird, glitchy, like super fast movements, almost like maybe vibrations. I don't know. And I always said it looked like one of those inflatable, wacky arm tube men, you know, like when the wind would blow and take a step,
so
and its body would
shuddering, kind of.
Yeah. So it took a step, did another step, and I was just walking right in the middle of the road. I ended up swerving over too, but I basically came to a stop. So I'm trying to figure out what this is. I'm still thinking it's like a person. I'm like, is this a drunk person out here like 4:30 in the morning in the middle of nowhere, like just walking in the road? And it walks past my driver's window, and I'm pretty sure it bumps into my mirror as it's walking past. And this thing is leaning forward. It almost has like, you know how an old person would be like leaning with a walker? Like,
Okay.
it has like that type of a lean to its body. And I don't see the top of it as it walks past. I'm in a Ford Explorer, and I looked online, they're 5.5 feet from like the top of the window area. If this thing's walking past me, and that the vehicle's 5.5 feet, and I can't see the top of it, this thing has to be what, almost 7 feet tall, leaning over, like forward?
Yeah, at least.
So that makes no sense of what this will, like, I can't be a person at this point, because I'm like, it's huge. It's too tall to be a person. And it gets behind my vehicle, and I can see like it's one leg, and then the other leg, and I could see like the ground and like stuff between when it would take a step. Like, it wasn't translucent. It was solid because it was blocking off everything. Like, my taillights are illuminated, and it's just solid black. I don't see clothing. I don't see fur. I don't see anything like that. It's not like a shadow. It is like a solid figure, but it's just completely black. And I could see like the ground and stuff between each one, like its leg here, the ground, and its other leg, and it kept walking. At this point, I just take off. I drive down the road, and right before you get to the highway, there is a DOT parking lot. My coworker had pulled in there, so I pulled up next to him, And I roll down the window. He's already rolling down his, and his eyes are like bulged out. He's freaked out. He's like, "Did you see that?" I was like, "Yeah, what was it?" He's like, "It didn't have an effing head." I was like, I know, I didn't see a head either. I didn't see arm. I was like, what the hell was that? And like, we're trying to figure out like what's going on. I was like, we got to go back because clearly I need to know what this was because this is strange. Like, makes no sense to me. I want to go back. He's like, are you crazy? Maybe at this point, looking back, yes, I'm crazy, but I wanted to go back. So we go down the road. I'm in front. He's following behind me, and it's only maybe a quarter of a mile. It's not very far away from where we were. But I noticed now there's something laying across the road, like directly in the center of the road, but it's laying this way. As we get closer, it looks like a very large black dog. Like it looks like a bushy black animal. I don't know what else to call it. So I'm about 30 feet from it. I park the vehicle. My lights are still shining on it. He pulls up directly behind my vehicle. And I get out of my vehicle. He cracks his window down about this much. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, well, there's clearly a dead dog in the road. Like, this must have been what we'd seen because it wasn't there earlier. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, this has to be what was in the road. And as I start to walk up to this thing, it lifts its head up and looks back. And its eyes are glowing because our headlights are shining, is what I've always said. But it lets out this really low, rumbly, like growl. And I freeze instantly. Because I'm like, oh shit, this isn't dead. Like, I'm thinking it's a big dead dog, but no. And the stupid thing, like, it starts to like try and get up on its all four legs and it does like a little hobble. And then it stops and stands directly up. Like this. Its front legs were not like a dog's would be. Like where its shoulders and stuff. It had like humanoid shouldery area. That's all I don't know how to describe it. Like its front legs dropped down like arms would. It didn't have human hands or humanoid feet, or it didn't even have like humanoid figure. It looked like a dog, like a normal black wolf is what it honestly looked like. And it just stood there and stared at me. And I'm 6'3", and this thing is eye to eye with me. I'm only about 15 feet from it, and the headlights are completely shining on this thing, so I can totally see what it is. It wasn't a bear. Like, again, we don't have bear here in this area of Indiana. We also don't have upright walking dogs, so... So I'm like, my mind is like freaked out because I'm like, what is this thing? And it kneels down and goes off to the edge of the road. Now, around this area is a deer preserve. And at the time, they had like a big 8-foot fence that went around this whole 2-mile squared off thing. Because they used to have like deers in there. They'd go hunting every once in a while. Like they'd let people go in there to hunt these specific deers. This place is still there now too. It's called X Factor Bucks. But we went, or it went off. I don't know if it went under the fence, through the fence, over the fence. It just went down to where the fence, and it's just gone. It just couldn't see it anymore. So I walked back to my vehicle, and at this point, my coworker had gotten out of his car. And, sorry, it's late.
No, that's okay.
And, between like where him and I are standing, because he's up here talking to me about what the hell we just saw, I look down at the ground, and this is the weirdest part of the whole thing. The whole thing's strange, but this is the weirdest, creepiest part for me. There was a little field mouse standing between us. Now, I don't know if anyone has any idea about mice or anything like that, but I've never seen a wild mouse be that close to a human, especially two of them in the middle of the road in the middle of the night. Like, I look down, it's literally right between us, and it's standing on its back legs using its front feet to wipe its face. Like, it's all wet looking. Its head's all wet. It's wiping its face. I'm like, are you seeing this shit? And I like move it with my foot. It just keeps cleaning itself. Like, it's oblivious that I just touched it. It makes zero sense to me that a wild animal would allow a human to even push it and doesn't even care. Just keeps like, it's completely in like a daze. So I'm like, all right, this is crazy. I'm going home. Let's get the hell out of here. Like, this is way too much crap going on. None of it makes any sense. I want to go home. So we both got in our vehicles. He went one way, went the other way. I went home. I went to bed. I woke up the next morning and I drew a picture, which I'm not an artist, but I drew a picture of this dog looking thing. Cause the first thing I'm thinking of is werewolf, because back in 2007, what else am I going to think of? Like, I seen something that looked like a dog that looked like a person, stood like a person. Like, I'm thinking werewolf. And I get on like one of these websites and there is a forum on there, and I post the photo and I start getting comments from people saying, oh, that is a Michigan dog man. Like, what is a Michigan dog man? Never heard of that before. So I started looking into it. I'd seen about, there was a song that they made up back in, I think, the 70s about a dog man, and lores about this and that. And I think it was like the Beast of Bray Road was around that time or something.
Yep, I was going to bring that up.
So I was like, oh, there's a lot of people that are talking about this. This is weird. So I try to go back to work that Monday night, which had been our Sunday night, like 10 o'clock. And I start to talk about it, and the coworker starts laughing. Like, one of the other ones that was in there. It's like, oh, did you hit a werewolf? Well, it pisses my other coworker off. So he pulls me aside over by the time clock, and he basically threatens me and says that I need to knock it off. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want people thinking he's crazy. If I keep talking about it, he's just going to deny it. And everyone's going to think I'm insane because he's just going to say he doesn't know what I'm talking about. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I just didn't talk about it anymore, because the only other person that can verify everything I said now doesn't want to talk about it. So it's like, and that's kind of where I got to with the podcast. Right before I made the podcast, I was at work, and I told one of these guys that I was working with, because he mentioned something about he used to live in Alaska, and I kind of joked, because on my keychain, I don't have it now, I think it fell off, but I had a little tiny Sasquatch. And when he mentioned Alaska, I just asked him, I was like, so did you ever see anything weird up there? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, Bigfoot or anything? He's like, no, nothing like that. And then for some reason, I just felt compelled to tell him about my experience that I just told you. And then we just sat in awkward silence. I was like, well, this guy now thinks I'm a freaking lunatic, so that's cool. But never did mention it again. And a couple months later, like I said, I started the podcast. The first person I interviewed was a Dogman person. And then Bigfoot, and I felt better about it. Like, the more people that I interviewed, the better I felt about what happened with my own stuff. And I never even mentioned it on my show. Like, I didn't want the show to be focused on what goes on with me. I wanted to focus on the other people, because I still was not ready to talk about it. And then eventually I just was like, I feel like a hypocrite. I want everyone to tell me their experiences, but I won't talk about my own. So I ended up going on a show last summer, and I honestly didn't even want to share my experience on there, because that wasn't why I was wanting to go on there. But someone back in 1990 encountered what they said was a dog man in the same areas where I live. And mine was in 2007, so it was like a 17-year difference. Well, 17 years just happened again. So I'm wondering if this year, if Dogman's not back around again, because every 17 years maybe he comes out. But the experience that the person was talking about was in 1990. They were down on the river, and this thing ran into their camp. Scared the crap out of them all, and they all ran out of there. They said it was like a werewolf or whatever on two legs running through their campsite. So I wanted to reach out to that person. So I messaged the guy that hosts the podcast and asked if he could reach out to that guest and give him my information, because I just, not even to interview him, I just wanted to talk to him about it, because I've never heard of anyone in my area that's ever seen a dog man. especially one that ran into a camp like that. So they told me they don't keep records of their old guest. He's like, but you can come on my show and talk about your experience, and if he still listens, maybe he'll reach out to you. So that was when I kind of first talked about it openly. And then I mentioned it on my show, and I've been on other shows now, talked about it, but for the most part, like I said, it's not really anything I enjoy talking about, because it's not like I'm seeking glory from it or whatever. Like, to this day, I don't know what I even encountered, because I remain somewhat skeptical. I don't even know if Dogman exists. To me, everything about this thing looked like a normal wolf or dog or something. Like, it didn't have the stereotypical depictions of what you think a Dogman would. Now, people are like, oh, you saw a bear with mange. No, this thing had very puffy fur like a chow. You guys know what a chow looks like, right? Like, they kind of got puffier, fluffy fur.
Yeah.
And it had a big bushy tail. Do bears have big bushy tails? Do they have pointed ears on top of their head? Like, some of them might have ears, but like not dog ears. And it had a prolonged dog snout. Like, it wasn't a bear. And if it was a bear, then I guess I can't identify a bear from 15 feet away. I need better glasses. But basically, I know it wasn't a bear. And for 15 years, I wrote it off as basically it had to have been a dog. And my version of what happened, to make sense to myself, which doesn't end up making any sense anyways, the dog was playing with a mouse. That's why the mouse was all wet. The dog was like licking it, trying to eat it. That's why the mouse was traumatized or whatever, like in a daze or whatever. It's because the dog had been messing with it. Someone must have hit this dog in the middle of the road. It broke its front legs, so it was flopping around on two legs, on its hind legs, is when we seen it and drove by it, because that's why it looked all glitchy and weird looking, because it was trying to walk. And when we came back by it, it fell over. And its front legs were still broken, clearly, so it stood up and then went off on its own. Like, that's what I said had to have happened. It was just a hurt dog. The mouse was traumatized from the dog playing with it. Someone ran it over. That's all fine and dandy until I go back to the original thing that I saw was so much bigger than the dog. That first all black thing that was walking, like I said, it had to have been over 7 feet tall. Its legs were super thick. They had to have been like this big around. The dog had normal proportionate size legs for a dog. So what the hell was walking in the road the first thing we seen? That didn't have a head or didn't have arms. So that's where I get hung up on it. It's like, what could it possibly have been? The first thing. I can explain the dog and I can explain the mouse, but I can't explain away the very first thing that we had to swerve to miss.
Yeah,
So
I guess it comes down to speculation, and there's not really anything that I think would be satisfying of an outcome just from speculating, but just to speculate, do you think that perhaps what you saw might not have even necessarily been a dog man specifically, but perhaps you happened upon some type of shapeshifter, like mid-change or something of that effect?
So with being a skeptic and everything, I don't know how to describe what I believe. I'm open to a lot of ideas. And that's what I said about why I do the podcast. Like, it's hard for me being a skeptic because I can't be a skeptic. I'm very open-minded now. Because that pretty much changed my whole perception of what reality could be, because I can't explain it away. And that's what I keep trying to do, is explain it in a logical sense, and there's no way of logically explaining what happened. Now, the possibility of a shapeshifter. I don't know if those are possible. At this point, I'm not going to say they're not, because I don't know. But it makes sense to think that the first thing we saw, that everything was connected. Because I never put two and two together until recently after I started talking about this, but the first thing we saw was on two legs. The dog got up on two legs. The mouse was also on two legs. All three of those things were very strange and unnatural. So is it a possibility that the first thing we saw was something manifesting itself, like trying to take a shape of something? and it ended up taking the shape of the dog. The dog didn't scare me away. I was still standing there. I didn't run off. I was just frozen. So the dog kind of goes away and doesn't manifest itself into this mouse, and that's why it's standing in between us. How did it get between us? Because the dog was going the opposite direction. So by the time I turned around and went back to my buddy, or not my buddy, but my coworker, how did it get between us? Like, where the hell did the mouse come from? So I don't know. Someone said we were abducted by aliens, and this was just what was implanted into our brains to cover up what had really happened.
Did you have any lost time?
Not that I'm aware of. Like, I don't necessarily believe that either, because someone said we were on drugs. We were hallucinating the whole thing. I was like, it's very strange, because how could we both hallucinate the same exact thing? I was like, I don't do drugs, but, you know, I'm pretty sure I've never heard anyone saying, we're tripping our balls off and having the same exact hallucination. I mean, I don't know. I can't explain it. And it's literally, the guy asked me if it's actually affected me, and I said, no, why would it? I'm doing a freaking podcast now when I interview people about the weird stuff that happens. Like, it's caused me to look into this stuff. It's changed my entire perspective. So no, I'm an idiot. It has affected me. Not in the sense of I don't go outside or I'm terrified or I'm afraid. No, it's affected me in the sense of my curiosity. It's made me want to find out what I really experienced, what I really saw. Because I can't just accept the fact that I'll never know. For some reason, that's always going to eat away at me that I don't know. And I honestly don't think I'll ever find out. That's what sucks about the whole thing. I've never experienced anything like it again. I never experienced anything beforehand. I've never experienced anything like that afterwards. So,
have you ever considered reaching out to that coworker again and seeing if he's a little more open 17 years later about it?
I probably could track him down on the internet these days, but not really. If you knew the guy, he wasn't really the type of guy that I wanted to be associated with anyways. And he wasn't the type of person you wanted to make mad either. He'd spent 9 months in jail supposedly, and I'm not trying to spread false information. I don't really know the whole story. This is what was told to me by other coworkers. He'd been in jail for 9 months because he got into a fight in a bar and took out 5 police officers.
Yeah. You don't want to be on that bad side.
They supposedly tased him twice before he went down. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it no more, dude. Don't worry about it. Don't kill me. So no, like, for my own benefit and safety, I've never really tried to reach out to him because I don't feel like having him come out into the light about me talking about it and gets mad and decides to rip my head off or something. Who knows?
Yeah, but you know what? What you just told me, I think, really hits home and solidifies that what you encountered was very strange and not of this world, in the sense that here's this guy who's a badass that takes down 5 cops and needs to be tased twice and did 9 months in the clinker, and it scared him and he never wanted to talk about it again. So like what you encountered, brought that type of person to a realization that he was not comfortable with.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've looked at it too. Is like, of all people, why did he not want to talk about it? What is that the thing that made him not want people to think he's crazy? Like the fact that you literally fought. That's not why they're going to think you're crazy. Like the fact of all the stuff that you've done, all the trouble you've always been in and out of, you're worried about telling people you saw something strange in the middle of the road. Right, I don't know. Right. I don't know, honestly, even know what all he saw, because he never got out of the vehicle until after the dog was gone, and he was parked behind my vehicle. So could he see everything that I seen? I don't know. I know he saw the first thing in front of him because he was in front. He's the one that swerved off the road to miss it. And then he's the one that the first thing he said was it didn't have a head. And then I know he saw the mouse. But as far as the whole dog thing, I never got a chance to talk to him about it because he didn't want to talk about it. It's like, I don't know all the details of what he does know. And again, this was 17 years ago. So if I tracked him down on the internet, figured out where he was and asked him about it, I don't even know what he's going to say.
It's probably, you have to write him a letter in jail.
Like I said, I don't even know where he got laid off like later on that year, and I've never seen or heard from him again. So I don't know anything about the guy.
Maybe he had something to do with it. Maybe it was all him. That's why he didn't want to talk about it.
I don't know. It's just,
I mean, who can take down 5 cops? A dog man, right?
that's just one of those stories, though. That like, we live in a small town. People like to make stuff up. So it's like, did that really even happen? Was it really 5 cops? Was it really 2 tasers? It was just one of those bar stories. It happened at a bar, so they were all probably drunk anyway. So who really knows what it was? I wasn't there, so I don't know. Like I said, I'm always just. I have witnessed him do some dumb things, and I have witnessed him punch people. So, like I know his mannerisms and how he is, so I didn't feel like being on the receiving end of one of those ass beatings. But you got to watch for your own safety. I wasn't afraid of the dog attacking me. It was more or less my
It's completely reasonable from the story now. I think what you encountered is really intriguing and super cool. And Dogman is very in right now, and everybody's kind of coming out of the woodwork with a Dogman encounter. And I don't know if that's because of shows like ours and yours and some of the other ones that are our counterparts, creating a safer environment where people can feel more comfortable actually discussing it, or if it's just kind of now the hot thing. We had Sasquatch for a while, and then it kind of went into skinwalkers, and now really the one thing everybody wants to talk about is Dogman. So I don't know what the real source of it is, but what I can say is there's a lot of stories out there now, and I think now this is the second time I've heard your encounter, and it's just as compelling. And I don't know if JC's heard that at all yet, but we have had some Dogman conversations in the past, and I think yours in particular I find the most striking because of the way that you describe it, and that there's like possible 3 different forms of a shapeshifter, or what is going on between these entities or animals that's like going on in front of you, the shuddering effect, down to the detail of the fur being a lot different than is usually described. It's very unique to you, and I find it to be incredibly intriguing, and I'm honestly glad that you shared it, because if any of our listeners were able to hear that, especially for the first time, it's that much more unique than some of the other ones that we've heard, where everything's kind of starting to blend together a little bit.
Like I said, I never even heard anyone talk about Dogman in a podcast form. And there's 2 shows that I was listening to. One was actually Sasquatch Chronicles, and I've been on an episode of that. I only reached out to him back in around Halloween because he was one of the first podcasts that was interviewing people about this weird stuff that I'd came across. So I typed in Bigfoot, and obviously Wes's show was like the biggest one out there as far as like Bigfoot stuff. So I sent him like a little short version of what happened. He ended up calling me, and I did a show with him, which it ended up being weird timing because I just recorded Harley Owens, which I don't know if you guys have talked with him yet or not. I think I was like the second person that ever interviewed Harley. But because I have such a big backlog, his episode was not coming out for a while. And then he ended up being like the first half of the episode that I was on for Sasquatch Chronicles. And then he was on all these other podcasts. So I ended up having to bump his release up, because I was going to be like, well, by the time my podcast comes out, with, even though it was the second interview he'd ever done, he'd already been on like 15 different podcasts at that point. So I was like, now I'm going to look like I'm just catching up. So I end up bumping his up just to try and keep up with everything else. But I went on that show, and the reason I was even like, that show for me was because he actually interviewed a couple different people about Dogman. And I never heard anyone else having Dogman encounters. Like, I've seen it online or whatever. I've heard videos. But I've never at that point heard anyone actually talk about it in a podcast form. And one of the people he had talked to used to be a judge. That was one of the first episodes I ever heard on his podcast. It was about this judge that had one stalking him in the corn, like out of the cornfields or whatever. And then I found another one where there's one stalking around these people on their farm. And the lady supposedly had shot at it and it smiled at her. And then I was just like, people actually are, is this really true? Like, are people really experiencing? Like, I had never really listened to podcasts before. And it really intrigued me more because I was like, maybe what happened to me, maybe there is something to it. Because again, I'm still trying to rationalize this whole thing. I'm still trying to make sense of what it could possibly be. And then from his podcast, I ended up discovering Tony Merkel's show, The Confessionals. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's...
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's a good show.
He did a lot of stuff about Dogman, which now this year seems to be more about Nephilim and portals and Nephilim. But like for a while, he was all about Dogmen. And with Tony's show, I ended up finding like the guys from the Hollow Sky podcast, which I've been trying to work with them here, get something set up with them. They've been reading some of the last couple of listener episodes or whatever were from me. I wrote them some emails and they'd read them on about some of the weird paranormal stuff that's been going on in the house, which I can talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But basically, those are like the only 3 podcasts I ever listened to. That and obviously that conspiracy one. So I guess 4 podcasts. They were the only ones I started listening to. And that's when I decided to do my show. And I didn't want to do it like a rip off of anyone else. I wanted to kind of do my own spin on it. So honestly, anymore, I don't even really listen to podcasts because I don't want to be influenced by anybody else. Like I might listen to an episode here or there, but I don't try and sound like anyone else. I don't try and do anything else. Like I enjoy what I do. And it all stems from basically not actually knowing what happened that night. I don't think I was abducted by aliens. I don't think I necessarily saw a dog man in the sense of it being a dog man. But I also don't know. And I think because I don't know is why it bothers me.
And you might never get that answer too. That could be something that just you try to rationalize for the rest of your life and you're just never going to be able to.
It's literally something that kind of just eats at the back of my mind. I know it sounds weird and everyone else is like, oh, he's being a whiny little bitch about it. But no, it's not even what I'm saying. Like literally, there's not a day that goes by that I don't randomly just think about that day. Like there's not a day that doesn't go by that I'm like, you know what? I wonder if I want to see that again. Like, as bad as I want to see that MFer just come out in the middle of the road one day. I'm going to run his ass over. Like, that's going to be my justification. I'm just going to tromp the gas down and just splattering. And they're like, haha, now I'm going to find out what you are. And if he comes back up and stands up and eats me, then cool. That's an awesome way to go out, I guess. But
Yeah.
That's just, I've said that before about Bigfoot too. It's like, if I'm ever out in the woods, I'm going to be the idiot that dies because I'm going to chase after it. Everyone else just like stands there and watches it walk off. No, I'm running after it. And I guess he rips me limb to limb. I was like, that's an awesome way to go. What happened to that guy? Oh, a bear ripped him apart. No, I'm on live stream. If I can think and remember, I'm on live stream on Facebook or whatever. My live stream chasing Bigfoot. So I say that, but again, I'd probably be the person that sees him and just freeze again. We all say things until we think we have something good going on, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, so you mentioned about having some stuff going on around your house. Do you want to talk about that before we head out and wrap up?
Now this stuff is more creepy, I think, than even that what I experienced. Because this, to me, it literally is recent, and it involves my children, and I don't like that at all. Like, and if you have kids, anyone listening, if you have kids, you understand what it's like to want to protect your children and what it feels like to not be able to. Makes you feel like you're a failure as a parent.
Yeah,
But
just
basically,
inadequate.
I've mentioned it before, so I think I actually mentioned a little bit of it on that episode with Ryan and them too. But back when we moved into this house, we bought the house in 2020. The lady had told us that all the doors have built-in crosses on them. Never took any stock into that. I was just like, okay. I mean, they do, like, there's a cross at the bottom, it's almost upside down. It comes up, and this one is like a cross at the top. It's just how the doors are made. I didn't think anything of it, but it does look like a cross if you look at it. They had Jesus pictures up on the walls and all sorts of things like that. So they were just an old couple. They'd lived here since, I think, 1995. So they'd been in the house for like 25 years. The house was built in 1978. I think one other person lived in it before they did, and no one's ever passed away. Well, before we'd moved in completely, I'm painting a lot of stuff, so we didn't want to bring everything in with me having to paint. I went out and bought one of those paint sprayer guns just to try and hurry up and get everything painted quicker than rolling it and stuff. So I'm in the kitchen spray painting, and at the time we had a miniature schnauzer. And this freaking dog would growl at a leaf blowing if he had. Like, if he seen something new, he's going to be growling at it. That's just how he was. And he's in the living room, and I hear him growling. So I'm like, I don't think a whole lot about it because that's what he does. Like, but then I hear a, it still does it to this day. There's a spot in the living room. If you step, you hear the floorboard creak. And I knew what it was because I'd walked through there and I've heard it before. So I go and peek my head around the corner, and he's just growling at nothing. He's staring at the direction of that noise, but there's nothing there. So I'm like, Jack, shut up. And I just go back to painting. But I had goosebumps. Like, it kind of creeped me out. I don't usually get creeped out by things, but that kind of just made me a little iffy. I was like, that's strange. And then just went about my business. Kept painting, whatever. It's probably about 2 weeks later, we'd moved in, and my bedroom is on this end of the house. There's 3 bedrooms on that end of the house. My bedroom, my daughter's bedroom, and my son's bedroom. I end up, where I'm at down here in the basement, I end up building, there's a bedroom back here for my older stepson and a bedroom on the other side for my older stepdaughter. So I built 2 bedrooms for them, and the 2 little kids are upstairs by my wife and I. Our son wasn't even born. We didn't even know she was pregnant with him until we bought the house. We went from a bigger house to a smaller house and found out we're having a bigger family. I was like, well, story of my life. Go from having enough room to not enough rooms, and now I had to build bedrooms. But basically, we're laying in bed, and you know, like older houses have like the pull down blinds, like they roll up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we pulled it down, get in bed, not a big deal. We're laying in bed, and that freaking blind just shoots up, scares the living crap out of us. We laugh it off. I'm not saying that's paranormal because they're blinds. Like, who knows? Maybe it didn't pull it down tight enough. But literally within like 5 minutes of that happening, the baby monitor, my daughter's only about 20 months old at the time. We hear mine come through the baby monitor. We get up, go grab her, bring her in our bedroom. She pretty much slept in that room for the next 8 months. She wasn't sleeping in her own bedroom. She was sleeping with us. 3 to 4 days later, I don't know the exact day, my wife is changing our daughter, and she has 3 very long, thick scratch marks right down her back. These marks were not made by herself because they were too big and wide. I checked everyone's hands. No one's fingers were big enough to make those scratches except for mine. And I have really big hands because I'm a bigger guy. I didn't scratch her back. I didn't do that. So what the hell did? And if you go by the belief of demons or whatever, that's mocking the Holy Trinity if you go into that realm of belief. That's the sign of 3. That's them marking her with 3. It's a demonic thing. So at this point, the next morning I go on protective dad mode. I go through the entire house and every corner of the house, and I'm trying to banish whatever this is because they're not going after my daughter like she is a baby. And I pretty much call this everything and I can think of. Call it a big couple of choice words, and told to come after me. Because if you're going after a baby, you're nothing but a big P word. And you need to come after me because she's literally a toddler, and come fight me. Well, nothing ever happened. So we thought that was the end of it. Up until recently. And now, looking back, there was a lot of other things that were going on that we were just not really paying attention to. My daughter, this is probably about 2 years ago now, she started having an imaginary friend. And her imaginary friend was named Chloe. Weird name, but come to find out, my wife said Chloe is Bluey's best friend. And at the time, my daughter was really, really into Bluey. So I didn't think a whole lot about it because whatever. And then she started to talk about some of the things that Chloe would do. Chloe knocked her off the bed. Chloe sleeps under her bed. Chloe said this. So finally, I'm like, what is Chloe? Like, what does she look like? I'm pretty sure she told me I don't remember if she said blue or purple. I think she said purple. I'm like, okay, well, Bluey's Bluey. You're blue, so Chloe, purple. Okay, makes sense. But I'm not smart enough to just shut up. I keep asking questions. I'm like, oh, why is she purple? Because she's dead?
Oh.
I'm like, what? She's like 3. She's like, she's a ghost. I was like, Yeah, I was like, no more talking to Chloe. Chloe's not welcome here. Chloe needs to leave. Chloe's not allowed to be here anymore. So we told her she's not allowed to talk about Chloe. No more imaginary friends, no more Chloe, no more anything like that, because they're not good things to talk to. We didn't really hear much else or have anything weird going on. I never did feel like there's something here. But when your kid shouldn't even know what a ghost is or anything about death, it perks you up. You're like, what is going on? You know?
It's odd that she associated the color purple with death. That is a 3-year-old would not know that.
Yeah.
What the heck are they teaching you on Bluey?
So, yeah. And then it wasn't too long after that I started doing the podcast. And after I started doing the podcast, I don't remember if I mentioned on this one or it might have been on mine when I said that when you start looking into things start looking back. Someone had left that comment to me on Facebook. And so I was like, why do you say that, person, Mr. Mystery Person here on Facebook leaving a vague comment? They said, I worry about you and your family. Because sometimes you start looking into things start looking back. So I'm concerned for your family. I was like, my family's fine. I'm not worried about that, anything. And then about a couple weeks later, my daughter starts having very bad night terrors. She doesn't want to sleep in her bed anymore. She's afraid. And then we started noticing in the winter, her bedroom, for whatever reason, is the only room in the house in the very corner that gets condensation on the ceiling. It just like bubbles up with water.
Oh, yeah.
I have sent someone up there to look in the attic because I'm a chicken shit and I will not go in an attic because I don't like in tight spaces. So I hired someone to go up and check the attic out and make sure it's not leaking or anything like that. We have a newer metal roof. It was put on like 6-7 years ago. There was nothing wet in the attic. There's no moisture or anything like that. So I can't explain why just that corner of her room randomly gets water dribbles or droplets. It doesn't ever drop though. It just bubbles right on the corner.
Interesting.
Very strange. And when she sees it, she doesn't want to stay in her room. She's afraid of the water. She just turned 5 a couple weeks ago. But back in November, and I told you guys I'd seen that weird orange orb. Looked like a UFO or something burning out behind our house out in the field, up in the air, and it kind of looked like one of those Chinese lanterns. Or I thought was a flare. That was like one of the first weird things that we'd noticed. And it was actually the night that I interviewed with Wright and Tom. We did that little swap cast. I think it was December 6th or 7th, something like that. We were coming home from the school, and there was this big, I thought it was Starlink. There was a bunch of lights right out in front of our house, so I could see it from the stop sign before we got home, and they were in a line. And I actually have some of it on video, but it's strange. If I send the entire video, no one can see it, but you can still see it on my phone if you watch the video on my phone. But once we got to the house, you can even see on the video, you can see it, and then it just disappears. And it wasn't Starlink. Come to find out, Starlink wasn't anywhere visible from my area at that point. So I don't know what the hell that was. But not too long after that, or maybe it was right before it, I don't really remember. But my son, who's 2, was laying in bed with it. He started having the same night issues. He wouldn't sleep during the night, wanted to sleep in our bed. He's never done that before up until just this past winter. He's laying in between my wife and I looking up at the ceiling, and he says, "Daddy, ghost. Ghost, Daddy." He has no idea what a ghost is. He barely talks. He's just now starting to talk more. Why is one of those words that he's saying as plain as day as ghost? My wife's like, "Are you listening to him?" I'm facing the wall. I was like, "Yep." I'm not looking. I don't want to see what he's looking at. I don't want to see no ghost. I was like, "Yep, I hear him." What's he looking at? I was like, ugh. So I turn over and look, and I don't see anything. Like, I look up the ceiling, there's a shadow, but the shadow's from the light from the fan that she insists that we have to have on. So she can't sleep without a fan on. So the fan's got like a blue light, so it's causing a shadow in the ceiling. It's like, he must just be seeing that shadow. But he curls up next to her terrified. She's like, he's shaking. And he just kept saying ghost. I never saw anything. Finally got him calmed down. He went to sleep, and at about 4:30 in the morning, he wakes up. He's like, "Daddy, Baba, Baba." It means he wants a bottle. He still drinks milk out of a bottle. So I went up to the kitchen and got him something. But before I left the room, he's like, "Oh, Daddy, ghost gone. Ghost gone."
Nice.
My wife's like, "Did you hear him?" I was like, "Yeah, I heard him. Ghost gone." Well, I didn't see any ghosts. So the next day, I went through the whole house again. Did the thing like I did when we first moved in, trying to banish whatever this thing is going after my children. And then when my daughter got home, I asked her, "Can you draw me a picture of Chloe?" Because weirdly enough, I had a dream that night. And in my dream, I drew this little tiny figure that had like really long dark hair, and it was purple. It almost looked like a little, remember those charm trolls?
Yeah.
Like the long-haired troll toys or whatever. For some reason, I kept thinking of that. Like, it was in my dream, and I kind of drew something before she came home, and I wanted to see what she drew. She didn't draw anything like what I drew. I was like, okay, so she drew Chloe as red. I was like, oh, she's red now? So I don't put a whole lot of stock into what she drew at this point because it doesn't. Now, had she drawn something that looked identical to what I drew, then I'd probably have just set the house on fire and said, F it, because we're out of here.
I'm actually really glad for you that that's not how that went.
Oh, don't worry. It gets even creepier. It doesn't get much better. So we figured out that, well, no, this was a Friday night. I have this on video. My son comes up from his bedroom, which is back same area where the other crap happens, and he's terrified again. You can see, like, he's nervous. He's like, Daddy, ghost, Daddy. Ghost, gone. Ghost, ghost. And you can see his hand movements. Like, I was like, you want to go look for it? Ghost, out. Like, what is he seeing? Like, I don't see nothing. Like, I don't see anything that he could possibly be seeing, but I don't know what to do. So I feel like my kids are being targeted again, and I feel like I can't help them because I don't see anything. I don't know what I'm doing, and it makes me feel awful. But he really hasn't mentioned ghost very much since then. Excuse me. And Christmas happens, and right before Christmas, I have this dream. And I say it's a dream. Everyone laughed at me because it wasn't on Christmas Day. It was like the Saturday before Christmas or something. So it was like 2 days. I don't remember what day Christmas was on, but I remember we had our Christmas at the house with my wife's family. Like her sisters and mom came over or whatever. And it was the night before. My son was sleeping between us because that's usually where he's always at now. And in my dream, these weird little humanoids are trying to take him. And they look like little aliens, but they're not like the gray alien. They look pink. They're like fleshy, pink-colored little... I go back to the whole maybe troll-looking things. They didn't have long hair. They were bald. They look like... I don't know how to describe. They look very strange alien-looking things. And they were like pulling on him. Well, I was swinging on these MFers. Like I was punching and kicking and fighting, trying to get him back. And it sounds ridiculous, but one of them stuck something up my nose. And I woke up. And I freak out because he's not laying next to me. Like when we went to sleep, he's laying between my... So I'm looking for him. He somehow managed to get underneath the covers and went all the way to the end of the bed. I have no idea how he had done that. So I grab him, bring him up, lay him between us, somehow fall back to sleep. The next morning I get up and go take my morning ritual piss. And I look in the mirror. I have crusty blood on that nostril.
No.
I blew my nose and there was blood in it. I instantly go to my wife and tell her, and she laughs and says I must have picked my nose in my sleep, and that's what I was dreaming about. Well, then she tells her family about my dream. So they're all laughing at me, saying that, oh, when you got probed in the nose, it must have been you shoving your finger up there and probed your own self. That's why they're all getting a good chuckle out of it. I was like, screw you guys. Like, what if I wasn't dreaming? And then everyone just kind of like shut up and like looked at me like I'm crazy. But like, seriously, what in the hell? How do you explain that? What are the oddness of having a bloody nose in the same nostril that you had a dream that something shoved a glow thing up in your nostril and you woke up instantly?
Yeah.
That's weird. Well,
A little bit.
It gets weirder.
No.
We go to Disney World right after Christmas. Our Christmas present to the kids was we took them to Disney. We went and stayed for a week down in Disney. We get back, and it's maybe the second week of January, second or third week. we have a fridge out in the garage. It's attached garage, and we keep most of our drinks out there, like the extra milk, the pop, the water, whatever. We keep it all out in the fridge in the garage. That way it doesn't take up the fridge in the kitchen. I woke up in the middle of the night. I had to go to the bathroom. I was like, I'm thirsty, so I went out there to grab a drink. I come back in. There's our kitchen. Then the hallway that goes down to where our bedrooms are. I seen a shadow, maybe 15 to 18 inches tall, hauling ass down the hallway. I take off after this damn shadow, and it goes right towards where my daughter's bedroom is. I open the door. She's actually sleeping in her bed for once. She wasn't in our room. I look around. I don't see anything. So they have night lights. Every one of my kids is afraid of the dark. Even my wife. So we always have to have night lights. I'm not afraid of the dark, so I don't really care. But we always have night lights on, so I can still see everything anyways. I didn't see nothing in her room or anything in her room, so I go back and just lay down. Kind of tell my wife about it the next day. And then a few weeks go by. I think it was probably the end of January, the 1st of February. My dog is chewing on something. I'm like, what are you eating? So I grab her mouth and she drops a tooth on the ground.
What?
Now this tooth looks like, I'm actually going to send it to you right now and you can share. I don't know how to share it on here, but this tooth looks very much like a human tooth. And I pick it up. I was like, what is this? This is weird. I show my wife. She got home from work. I don't know whatever happened with the tooth. Like, I set it on the board. She looked at it. She agreed that it looks strange. She really thinks it is a human tooth. And just send them to you.
Okay.
I don't know what goes on with the teeth, whatever. She looked at them, whatever. And then, about 2 or 3 weeks ago now,
Drew.
My dog was chewing on something again, and my son's yelling at her. He's like, what are you eating? And she drops what I just sent Drew. These were the second ones that were dropped. I pick it up and I said, show my wife, like, she must have found that tooth again. My wife is now white as a ghost. She said she threw those teeth. She said she threw it in the trash.
That's 100% a human's tooth. Look, it has the root that goes up.
Yeah.
So
that's not a child's tooth either. That's like an adult tooth.
But she swears she threw that tooth away. And she also agrees that this is the same exact tooth. So how the hell did that tooth come back?
It's the magic tooth.
So me being me, I took the tooth down the road and threw it into my asshole neighbor's field out back because
dude, come on.
They can have
whatever
the bad
works,
juju.
man.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
So
this is for you.
I wish I would have marked on the tooth with like a Sharpie or something. I didn't think about it afterward. That way, if it comes up again, then I'll know it's the same tooth that came back because I literally chucked that thing. She said she threw it in the trash and it came back. So if it comes back again from the field, then I don't know what to do. But that is apparently a thing, a paranormal thing that goes on is people have been finding random teeth in their house now.
Yeah.
I've never heard that until just recently.
It used to be pennies. My mom would always find pennies when somebody was going to pass away, but then now it's teeth. That's the thing.
Well, it's funny because we keep having silverware come up missing. Most of our spoons just come up missing. Can't explain what happened to them. And I don't know how far off you guys have ever went to with the whole stories of fairies and fae and stuff like that, but supposedly that is one of the things that they do is steal your silverware.
Yeah.
And then I was
also-
like, well, if you go into the whole Fae theory, we would have like reverse tooth fairy here. Instead of taking teeth, they're bringing teeth.
Thank you. Hey, keep it up. You'd have a whole set of dentures.
Yeah. So that is the recent event. I
Wow.
forgot to mention back in, I think, October, my older kids had friends over and they were down in the basement trying to have a seance.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah, so I came down and ripped them a complete new one. I was like, you should know better considering the crap that we've already went through, and you know how I am, and you're going to open up something and you're not going to be able to close it. And those friends have never returned. Ever since I was like, I don't care. Go home and tell your parents that the crazy dad started screaming about demons and stuff at them, and they don't want to come back over. So, but no, that is
It's wild.
that is the weird stuff that has been happening in the house recently. And like I said, those teeth that I sent you was from probably 3 weeks ago.
You got to let me know if that tooth pops up again.
I don't
Yes,
even know what I'm going to do if I find more teeth.
I think your original plan of burning the house down suffices here.
Like,
Yeah.
We
I'm
have
just
an exorcist friend if you need one. Father Vincent Lambert out of Indianapolis can help you.
And also, Sean Whittington is also an exorcist. friend
Sean
of the
Whittington
show.
is an exorcist too.
That
Yeah.
was a big thing for me when we first started. Was I wanted to try to get those types of shows because that's what Art used to do.
yeah.
And so we have connections all throughout the community, I guess.
I've thought about having someone come in and like cleanse the house or whatever,
With fire.
but since none of us are like super religious or anything like that, so if we don't really believe in that, is that really going to help? It's kind of where I come
I mean,
to.
do you have to believe in it for it to be real?
I believe that that's typically what everybody says, or at least that's what Malachi Martin used to say, was that for you to invoke it, you have to kind of believe it or it won't work.
We don't even really talk about the weird things that go on because my wife and I said we didn't want to give it any extra power,
Right.
like
Yeah.
be afraid of it or believing into it or talking about it or making the kids afraid of it. Like all that's going to do is cause it to manifest something else. Like I don't want to make an egregore or something like that of giving whatever this energy is. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's a demon. I'm not going to say it's a ghost. I don't know what it could possibly be. Like my dream was a friggin' alien looking thing that I was popping in the face. So it's like, I don't know.
Till there's seances in your basement, right?
Yeah. And it's weird because, and I've said this too, and I feel hypocritical for saying it, but like, I really struggle with people that come on and tell me they've had this experience, this experience, this experience. Like, if you've had so many experiences, I'm starting to doubt that person. But now here I am being a hypocrite because of all the weird things that have been going on. And I can't say it's related to the podcast because this stuff happened when we first moved in. I didn't even start doing the podcast till September of 2022. Like, we moved in October of 2020, and she had the scratches and stuff on her back, and we heard the voice to the thing. So that was there from the moment we moved in.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Strange.
I don't know. Like I said, that's when you're a parent, it's really hard, especially like when they're so young. You don't know what they're seeing, what they're saying. Like, are they just imagining things? You don't know. But when I'm finding teeth, when the dog is eating teeth, where the hell's the dog coming for teeth? My friend convinced me to go outside, and I did. I went outside and looked. Thought I was going to find like a human skull somewhere where the dogs, we have off the side of the deck where the dog's going to run out and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to find like a human head that they've dug up or something out back and bringing in bones. I was like, well, that explains everything, but I never found a head, so no jawbones or anything.
Yet.
Yeah, yet.
Yeah.
But that's the gist of my weird experiences, so hopefully your
Wow,
listeners...
that's a movie right in and of itself, right there.
My life is a movie. It's a...
Yeah.
probably a comedy at this point.
Well, now that you're on here, it's definitely a comedy.
As soon as JC starts trying to make some jokes.
I've been sneaking them in there. They just been falling flat like usual.
Yeah. It was typical bombing. But that's incredible stuff, and thank you for sharing it for sure. I know it's
Yes.
definitely not easy. I'm looking at that again,
It's
even
something
by
different than what
accident.
we've had on the show as well too. Like we don't get a lot of stories like that. Like we get like cryptid encounter stories or I saw Bigfoot, but like not things specifically like that. So it's nice to have a change of pace, even at your expense, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad I
Thank
can
you.
make interesting content for people, I guess. My life story has made a great episode for people.
Yeah, that's just some jarring stuff. It just doesn't look like it would even belong to any animal that it could have. That is a molar. That is.
Yeah.
And
I think we figured out it's like an incisor, like one of the teeth, like right here, right when your teeth start to get back into your big molars, like the ones right in front of the molar.
Okay.
That's what what I think it kind of looks like. So I sent it off to the Hollow Sky podcast, and those guys did an episode, and they talked about teeth, and they said the same thing. They're pretty sure it's human teeth. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I'm not a tooth expert, but it doesn't look very, I checked the dog's mouth. She wasn't missing teeth.
Yeah.
So, in the likelihood of finding two of the same exact teeth, even if they are different, that look identical, is very strange. I went on Reddit and people said when people find teeth, rodents are bringing them in. So not to be concerned by it, that's just being brought in by mice. Okay, well, where the hell are the mice getting the teeth? That's what concerns me. Like,
yeah, right. The teeth just don't grow out of the ground.
they don't bring up like teeth from anywhere. Like, clearly they're getting the teeth from something. So I'd like to know where the head is, so I can figure out where the teeth's coming from. Because maybe if I can find it, it'll solve all my problems in the house.
Downvote.
Yeah.
Don't ask questions here.
Don't make logical sense on Reddit.
Are you advertising your podcast right now?
You're now banned.
Permaban, ban hammer. There you go. Now I feel like something.
You just got negative 45 downvotes. Oh, thanks.
I think if you're okay with it, we could probably wrap up with that. I wish I had some answers or some guidance for you, but we'll just have to end with the mystery of that tooth situation.
If any of your listeners have any ideas, they can always reach out to me and let me know what type of rodent's bringing the teeth in.
Yes, please do. We will go ahead and include all of your links and stuff in the show notes, but why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you?
It's grifting time, baby.
Yeah. Look for Tinfoil Tales wherever you listen to Sasquatchers, and make sure you're finding the Tinfoil Tales that is not the Australian version, because there is an Australian version of Tinfoil Tales that talks about the cookers out in the middle of nowhere of the outback. And that is not my podcast. So my podcast has a logo of Tinfoil Tales with some aliens and some Bigfoot looking, monster looking things. If you find one with just Tinfoil Tales with a tinfoil hat on it and a blood drippy logo, that is the Australian Outback Cookers. That is not the show that I host. I don't know why when I made my show that I never thought to look and make sure no one else had a show, but apparently that show came out 2 months before mine did. So it is what it is. But no, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to podcasts. There is a YouTube channel, so go to the YouTube, subscribe. I don't do live videos that often on there, so it's just basically videos from audio versions with like the standard artwork from the episode up, like a static image. But other than that, there is a Patreon, and there is all the social medias, which I am terrible with social media, so mainly look for Instagram or Facebook, because the other ones I have I do not use. Or you can go to tinfoiltales.com and has all that goody stuff on there as well. It'll take you to all of the links to listen, or you can even listen on the website. So that is about the gist of it.
All right, awesome.
Cool.
Definitely seek all that stuff out. This was a lot of fun. It was intriguing. I had goosebumps through some of it. It was a long conversation between your show and mine, but I'll say that it was about the easiest 4 hours that I could have asked for, and I appreciate it greatly. And
Wait a minute, he just talked about the Amityville horrors a couple days ago. We just did a supernatural town hall session on the Amityville horror. Wait, was that the same day?
It's a favorite
No,
topic.
that was last week. Yeah.
I recorded that episode with Rich from Founding Lore Fathers back in the middle of January. So,
okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I have a backlog. So when the episodes come out, they're recorded like weeks to months in advance. But,
cool.
I'll be checking that one out for sure. And anybody listening, make sure you check it out. We're going to go ahead and hit the outro here and thank our guests for being on and thank our listeners for supporting us. And
thanks,
we
guys.
will see you next time. Thanks for squatching, everybody.
Squatch you later.